Okay. Oh, we have to get Marc singing too because this is his requested song.
That's true.
Okay.
I'm always
all right. Hey.
Hey.
You have to jump on Clubhouse, man.
Oh man, yeah, Clubhouse.
See, they need to come up with a Zoom adapter or plug-in.
Why don't we build a Zoom adapter plug-in? I'm sure that our friends at Bellina will do that. We'll run a Bellina container inside Clubhouse. We've come too far. We are. Let's raise a bar and the car to the stars. It's up all night to the sun. It's up all night to get some. It's up all night for good fun. We're up all night to get lucky.
Get lucky.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yes,
That was so awesome.
Had to do our shout out to Daft Punk since they kind of went your separate ways. I don't know if any of you saw the YouTube video that they created where they're in the desert kind of, and then one of them explodes. So what is the symbolism? What does it all mean? Oh my God. Is one of them still going to do music and the other one's not? I don't know.
You know what? Here's the thing. We don't even know who they are.
Well, there's that. There's that. We know that they're French androids. So so that means they can't be on Clubhouse because they're androids. Is that what it means?
Oh,
maybe.
Snap.
Sorry about
See, you can only get witty crap like that on IoT Coffee Talk.
Sorry for introducing a new caste system in society for Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Wow. Do we have a special guest this week?
I think we do.
Oh my gosh.
Dude.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for letting me join in.
Yeah. Hey, bring us in, man. Bring us in,
But
Rob.
Adam,
All right.
you're mute on Clubhouse. Is that correct?
Yes, don't mute on Clubhouse.
Don't mute on Clubhouse.
I promise to get our shit together, people.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So you're going to unmute, Adam. There you go. You're golden.
Cool.
So everybody can hear you there. And then we're on the video that no one can see until later on YouTube. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're pleased to bring in our special guest, Adam Livesay. He is a co-founder and chief revenue officer, which means he's on the frickin' hook for money. For Elevat, which is an industrial IoT company up here in the greater Seattle area, probably closer to Mukilteo or Arlington or some other Everett-based-ish thing.
I think you're pronouncing it wrong. He has like this weird little, you guys have this weird little French accent type of thing. In the Elevat or something like that. Right?
What's that about?
It's Pacific Northwest and how we say elevate.
Elevate? Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but it's a PNW thing.
Is it just that you guys don't really know how to read French?
It was like any other
American version.
Any other great idea. We're inside a boardroom or a conference room inside an industrial manufacturing company, and it went on a whiteboard, and that's what it is.
Okay, cool.
And our PR.
He just froze.
Because it's slightly difficult.
Oh, he's back.
5G. Oh, he's back.
You're back. You just froze for the last 3 seconds.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Let me shut.
That's okay.
Yeah, he must be on
yes, he must not be on 5G.
Yeah, you're not on 5G.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're nowhere near 5G.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm personally on Ethernet, just in case. Don't let any of my bosses at Ericsson.
I'm on 4G.
Oh, okay. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, so you said you were on the whiteboard at an industrial company, and you're coming up with the names.
With the name. And we threw it up there, and it stuck, and we took it.
It wasn't the deal where you were searching for domain names like most people, and you're like, all the good names are gone.
No. Well, Elevate was gone, right?
Yes.
And so we just said, let's put a little asterisk over it. Let's call it good. And let's move on to the business model, and let's get that taken care of. And now the branding comes back and bites us.
Well, but it sounds like it's not biting you that much. Sounds like you guys are doing okay.
Yeah. Life's fun. It's exciting right now, right? So a lot of cool things happening inside the space.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we talk about IoT startups and stuff like that, and all of us have kind of maybe been involved in something like that. But in your case, it's not a startup that just kind of purely came out of the ether. It was a spinoff, or you were like legit out of a real industrial company.
Yeah, for sure.
Legit. Like they actually saw a real problem. They didn't invent a problem.
Imagine that.
We invented a problem, and now we're going to solve it. Please give us money, VC man. I'm going to go close the store here.
I just closed a bunch of programs, so let me know if I freeze again.
Okay.
If I do, I'll go plug into a hard cable. But yeah, I mean, we're inside an industrial manufacturer, and we had a need from our customers. It wasn't even called IoT. I think a lot of people were calling it M2M back then, right?
Yep.
And we were integrators, so we looked for products off the shelf for probably 2 years, and it wasn't meeting the needs of that like mid-enterprise to small business manufacturer. And we thought we were crazy. We're like, are we crazy out here in Seattle and Portland, and we're making this up?
People in Seattle actually are crazy.
I mean, we don't know, right? We're like, are we just making this up? And we're around.
You guys came up with grunge.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And $5 coffees. So
and killed glam rock. Terrible.
Yes.
That guy's fault.
I've often said that if Guns N' Roses had stayed together, they may have been able to stave off the grunge thing. But Axl Rose just had to implode, and therefore we get Eddie Vedder and Kurt Cobain and Chris Cornell and Lane Staley and all these other great people that are now dead. We're so sorry.
They're not all dead.
Okay, they're not all dead. Eddie Vedder's still going strong.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, my God. No, it's good to, we like to just kind of talk, we're certainly not here to plug companies. We like to talk about high-level concepts, but it is interesting to talk about how people got to where they are, or we like to talk about business models or what people are seeing in the marketplace, It's because a whole lot of people dove into this space a long time ago and, penning for gold in IoT, and it hasn't worked out for almost all of them. And so it's always interesting to see, the direction people came from, because it sounds like you guys you were already part of a big industrial company doing the real stuff, and you just saw a gap or a problem in the marketplace, right?
Yeah, a gap for us and a gap for our peers. So like we had peers that did the same stuff that we did, but in different parts of the country.
Yeah.
And they were running into that same issue. And so we dove into it. And, I kind of think to your point, we're talking about this a lot yesterday as a team, is that the technology in IoT or connectivity or edge or everything is so much farther ahead than the industrial space. That a lot of the time the companies that are getting funded or trying to build that are way ahead of where the actual manufacturing space is. And so we joke around about 5G and 6G, but we're literally moving customers from 3G to 4G.
Woo!
Yeah, I mean, so there's a big disconnect there, I think, between what people are investing in and what's actually
right. And you just froze again, dude.
History.
Yeah, while he's frozen.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Marc.
And you're back.
Go change your shirt. Anyways, people who watch the episode on YouTube will get the reference. So
Yes.
I might mute my video for a second while I move some stuff around, but go ahead.
Okay.
I'm still here.
As he plugs into a nuclear reactor and Ethernet is, his fiber to the house that he probably has. I don't know. Gosh, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. How are things in Barcelona today, Marc?
It's good. Actually, I'm coming from giving a class about 5G and IoT to MBA students today.
Whoa.
Nice.
Did they believe what you told them?
I don't know. I hope so. I think I was very convincing. I think it was very related to what Adam was saying, right? That companies are researching on 5G, or marketing is going towards 5G, 6G, or Wi-Fi 6.
Yeah.
And companies are still on 2G, right?
Yes. Right. You know, it's funny when you say 2G. I hear people all the time try to rewrite history of mobile and telecom all the time. Like they say, we didn't have apps and data on phones until 3G came out with the iPhone. And I'm like, you're so wrong. Do you not remember GPRS and 2G? And we had Windows Mobile and Windows Phones, smartphones doing that on GPRS, babe. And then the next advance we had that was a bunch of aggregation where we created something called Edge. Do you guys remember that? Where we aggregated a bunch of GPRS connections together to get it even faster. And so also, the first iPhone was not 3G. It was 2G, and it ran on GPRS. And part of the problem was not just scarcity of 3G.
That's right.
But also, and this actually hits home to some news that was that you may have heard from Verizon this week, was that the original iPhone, the 3G was using too much battery power.
Yeah.
And so Steve Jobs is always the perfectionist. If it's not the ultimate user experience, then he's not going to do it. And so that's why the first iPhone went out with 2G GPRS.
Well, I mean, Adam, you're bringing up a really great point. You always have to think about the technology readiness of a client. And that's something that marketing folks typically don't tune into. In fact, they ignore or they're just completely ignorant of. But when you look at IoT, that is probably the prime factor. And even as you look at sort of this telco transformation stuff, there's all this talk about Open RAN and new types of paradigms for deploying web scale stuff into our networks. But the thing is, how ready are some of these brownfield operators or clients that have brownfield environments and brownfield these massive portfolios of technology that they're legacy technologies that they have to deal with. And so there's a lot of hurdles to adoption of the newer stuff. So you're sharing a very important point. And this whole idea that there's this disconnect, it's absolutely true, because both ends are struggling. You have the folks who are bringing the new technologies that really don't see what or understand what's happening on the ground in the end markets. So, totally spot on, dude. It's awesome.
I think the other thing to look at too is if I build a machine and I build a trenching machine that we see out there in construction sites, that's a 7-year design cycle. They set it, it gets set for 7 years. That supply chain does not change.
Yep.
And then you're going to get a shot at 7 years here. So not only are they speccing from 3G to 4G now, that's probably set for the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
So the technology is going to kind of be what's the install base there.
Yeah.
The training and service techs are going to be trained on that technology, right? And then I think the other big missing factor that they don't take into account is if for the industrial IoT space is most of those companies are not trained to sell new technology services, even if it's just a feature with their new machine. It's new to them, right? They know horsepower, they know durability, they know uptime, and they're having a hard time equating the two, even though they're the same, right? You're really just kind of enhancing that. It's still a massive learning curve. So you're not just a technology part of their supply chain. You really are becoming a co-selling partnership with them as well, because you're helping them retrain their organization. And I think that's been kind of a big missing piece at least in the industrial IoT sector is you're on this for the long journey, right? It's not spec it, set it, forget it. Like you're with them as they go through this.
Spec it, set it, forget it.
Yeah, for sure, right? Yeah. Yeah. But it's a long-term partnership on both sides. And so you really do got to be committed to it.
I'm pinging people in the clubhouse to come in. I'm not ignoring you. I'm kind of ignoring you. Yeah. Maybe if you were talking about something important, like what's going on with Russell Wilson?
Oh my goodness, man. You're gonna give me PTSD before it even happens. Like, I'm gonna be
Yeah. Well, you know what? He needs more protection, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's another 3 to 5 year design process. I mean, that's not going to happen overnight. It's hard to get a good offensive line.
You know what? We had a good offensive line when we had like Max Unger on center, and I think that's where it fell apart, is when we traded him to New Orleans. And to get Jimmy Graham, right?
Yeah,
and it's like, you guys were thinking the wrong thing. Protect your quarterback first. And then you don't necessarily always have to have the best everybody else. But if your quarterback has time, you're golden. Let me think if I could think of another quarterback over the years who's had a lot of good protection. Oh, Captain America.
Don't even say it. Don't even say it.
Tom Brady. Yeah.
Uh-oh, he froze again. Yeah.
He froze. Yeah. Go ahead.
Again?
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
I'm here. I'm just doing this. We're rolling with it. We're making a game time adjustment and audible. Let's roll.
I don't know, man.
One question about what we were talking. So let me get into the path again, if that's okay.
Yes.
So actually, one of the reasons for success for having China as a manufacturer is that what they say is that they jump from, for example, no connectivity to 3G manufacturing plants, for example. No, automatically, they didn't go from nothing to GPRS and then 3G, and they just make this leapfrog, right, and jump into the latest technology. Is this not good, or can we apply that for industrial IoT as well? What do you think?
Yeah.
You know. So here's what's tough. Just from my own maybe experience in the space is, you walk into big companies and they're big Fortune 100 manufacturers, let's just say, and some of them have beautiful 21st century facilities. Then you go to maybe they might build a very sophisticated pump or valve, and they have like post-war machines in there that they're not going to, like, everyone says they're going to put IoT on it and stuff. And like, you're never touching that thing. And so I think it becomes a siloed effort, and they're not able to just put up a bunch of new manufacturing facilities. It'd be ideal if they could, but they can't. And then the other thing I think we're going to deal with right now is, with travel down so much, I think profits are up so much. A ton of these manufacturing companies in our industry have putting a lot of money to the bottom line. So as travel starts to increase, now you're making an investment on the future, which I think there's going to be a less investment on manufacturing technology inside the plant. I'm kind of watching those budgets shift a little bit. But ideally, I'd love that. But then I walk through Marysville, Ohio, and I see a machine from 1949 in there that's pumping out $250,000 pumps that there's no way they're putting IoT on it.
Yeah.
Wow. Dude, I think you should bring your video back. I really do. We'd want to see your face instead of the words. You're back.
Yeah.
You're back in black.
There.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's some good logic there, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I can go, it's just interesting. A lot of manufacturing is built within 8 hours of the U.S. manufacturing, 8 hours of Cleveland. So when you drive around there, you see a lot of different manufacturers, and it's amazing that you can literally go across the street and see two completely different factories.
I came up with a new tagline based off of what you just shared with us, Adam. It's make sure your disruption is not disruptive. I think that's like some serious Buddha.
That's really good
right there, right?
Serious Buddha.
Think about, because everyone claims to be disruptive. It's like, hey, you know what? You got to check out my IoT platform. It's totally disruptive.
Yes.
Yeah, and they don't realize that on the other end, the prospective customer or client's like listening to this going, okay, how disruptive is this going to be to my business, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to make that investment and they're going to take on that impact and risk. You better have a pretty damn good value case that you're bringing to the table, right?
For sure.
And I've done a lot of work in China with a lot of Chinese companies in the past, and one of the things that is unusual about China, and I think we really do need to come up with some sort of response to this, I guess, dynamic or capability that they have over there, is they can take an old factory and you can have like the local party sit there and say, look, we have this digital economy initiative and we want to modernize this whole region. They'll go and literally buy the entire plant off of that legacy owner. And then let's say if it's a plant for pressing steel wire, they'll take that and then put in a new modern factory, and they'll figure out how to do it. But the thing is that they have this ability to direct the allocation of resources and drive a lot of these what you could consider disruptive modernization, efforts. And we have trouble doing that in the West. It's just not part of the capitalistic model. But it is something that that allows command economies like what you see in South Korea as well as in China drive modernization probably a lot quicker than we can.
Yeah.
So a little bit of insight. That's something that I've observed ever since I was doing work in South Korea. And I saw how quickly they were industrializing and modernizing and reinventing themselves. And look at where they are today. I mean, they were one of the poorest countries in the world 60 years ago. And now they're like either the, 12th or 11th largest economy in the world. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I think that one thing that I think the startup community's done traditionally, like in the software space, let's just go back to like Bell Laboratories, right? Is they've done a really good job at creating an ecosystem between companies, private companies, public companies, universities, and startup. Silicon Valley, and now it's spread out to Seattle and Boston and Austin, all these other places. I think we are seeing a pendulum shift in the industrial space doing the same thing. 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, there was very much one company could solve everything and provide the solution from an industrial perspective. They would come in there and they'd say, I'm company ABC, I'm going to provide this whole thing. And it was very, very kind of walled off. In the last, I would say 5 years, there have been a lot more ecosystem partnership, strategic partnership plays where they bring in small companies like ours or anybody else's, large companies, their channels, their sales folks, and they're realizing that one company can't solve it all. And they're looking at, so I think that's kind of one of the really exciting things about what I'm seeing, at least here in North America, is that this is not only happening randomly, it's being encouraged. There's like initiatives and I would say there's been more rapid partnerships made in the last 12 months that I'm aware of in the industry that are true go-to-market partnerships, not technology stack partnerships or whatever. These are true go-to-market partnerships. And I think that's what's going to help us move to this next stage of, like you said, leapfrogging from 3G to 4G or whatever it is, right? That next step function is going to be through these partnerships of innovation and what do you want to call it? Breadth of product offering in the industrial space. So we're super excited about it because companies that you never think would share data before are sharing data with each other, which is a big deal.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, not to call like any of the big, these big companies, but there are companies that are, some of the largest industrial companies before, where they would not allow a third-party software app to run inside a machine they built because maybe they had a competitive product on a different type of machine. And now they're saying, send us over your security framework, send us over your MSAs, send us over APIs. We'll do a review and we'll get back to you. And oh, by the way, it's not coming back in 3 months. It's coming back in 2 weeks. Huh. That's a major shift that didn't exist, a couple of years ago.
Oh, that is big.
That's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal, right? Because people are starting to play well with each other.
Yeah.
And I have a theory on this, for whatever it's worth.
Oh, and here we come.
The theory is, here's the theory.
You're a mute.
Sorry. The theory, and this is a little bit Seattle biased, but I think that Microsoft and Amazon was a real big player in this, because when they started to release their cloud software tools, and you could start to run all my Microsoft products on my Mac or whatever the case was, that didn't happen 5-10 years ago, right? It's so much easier now to get, even when 360 came out, it wasn't true, cloud type services, right? But now everything kind of interoperates, and I can spin up these different things and all this deal. I think that has made its way into the industrial enterprise, and people are realizing that it's okay to have different software apps running inside your company that are cloud-based, and they don't necessarily have to be, invented inside these walls or spec'd out by our IT folks. No data. I have no data behind that. I'm just telling you that that's kind of the sense I get from the conversations I have.
Adam, you should write an analyst report about that.
Yeah.
And then you could sell it for $50,000.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So think about that for your new career.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's just been a major attitude change in the industrial space. And I that's the only thing I can think about is we've gone to more cloud-based services internally. And so there are a lot more acceptance of third-party software companies helping them run their operations or their product.
Do you think they got innovative, or do you think they faced being disrupted, or they saw the impending cliff that they're headed towards? Because you're right. I think we've seen that same thing in the past, with manufacturers and industrial equipment. It's like, no, you don't get to touch my stuff. You don't get to integrate, you can connect a RS-232 to my PLC or whatever. There was always that pushback and that fear, and you can't, and of course, even in a broader sense, when we talk about just generic things like OT and IT, the operational guys was like, get out of here, all you tech IT people. You've done nothing but bring problems to us, to our perfect air-gapped world that we used to live in. And so, it was a hands-off. And so you had a lot of IoT people who were in La La Land because they came from the IT tech world, the carpeted floor versus the tiled floor. And they were accustomed to something, and all of a sudden they ran into a wall, this OT wall, where these guys were like, get the hell out of here. And you're not touching my stuff, and you're going to screw it up. We didn't have viruses. We didn't have any of these problems until you guys showed up. And so I saw lots of pushback. But you're seeing this evolution where they're kind of getting with the program, they're opening up. And so they're either opening up because they say, wow, there really is value, or they're opening up because they're about to head off a cliff and they knew they need to modernize. Either they're going to have to do it themselves to be relevant, or they need to partner with somebody.
Yeah. So I think it's a combination of a bunch of things, right? I think that I think the whole attitude change inside Microsoft has been a massive help, because in the industrial space, they own so many massive IT contracts inside major industrial companies. And I think Microsoft's complete attitude change of partnering with either with solution providers or products that are built inside Microsoft or whatever the case is, and then moving as many of their massive industrial companies to the cloud, they're really good at it. So if we're an industrial, 1,000 company, they probably have a 7 or 8 figure Microsoft spend in that company. Rarely do you hear them say they're on AWS. Rarely do you hear them say they have their IT spend on Google. Microsoft seems to be in there. And I think that attitude change of Microsoft has really helped with that, because now it's kind of like that old, saying, no one gets fired for specking IBM. Same thing with Azure. Oh, you guys are built on Azure? You guys offer your services on Azure? Or you guys offer an AWS? It's almost like just checking a box for those companies.
Yeah.
Rather, before 5 years ago, I don't even know if people knew what Azure and AWS was inside big industrial companies.
Right. Also, there's this legacy that a lot of people don't realize in manufacturing, that you wouldn't be surprised to walk on a factory floor and find like these Windows 95 and Windows 98 machines connected to the machines. Because that was the computer back then. I always remind people, when you hear about an industrial protocol and it like OPC and OPCDA and UA and all that stuff, the O in OPC stands for OLE, Object Linking and Embedding. For all you old people who did Visual Basic in the early and mid 90s, that's when we had Object Linking and Embedding, OLE, which was the beginnings of being able to do inter-process communication and then communication across machines. And manufacturers tapped into that at that time, because that was the kind of the magic. And also people at home were running Windows 3.1 and then running Windows 95. And so it was understandable to people. And so there's that weird legacy. So it freaks people out when they walk into a factory and they go, whoa, what's this Windows 98 machine here doing, showing this little graph or something connected to this big machine? Is that crazy talk or what? And it's like, and so they're just there already.
All over.
Yeah, all over the place.
They're and they're the thing that we will not change it till that machine breaks.
Absolutely.
A bunch of particle boards, it presses them out until that machine breaks. We're not upgrading that. Don't touch it. All the time.
That's a great theme you just touched on right there, because there's a lot of that. It. Well, yeah, can't touch this.
Can't touch it.
No, but like until it dies, we're just going to let this machine run until it dies.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of that everywhere. And obviously, in manufacturing, whether it's discrete or process or whatever, you'd prefer to have an instrumented machine. It's going to tell you more about its health and performance and faults and stuff like that. I've certainly seen, and you may have seen, I spent a lot of time out in Eastern Washington in the agriculture space, helping out with IoT there. But it's not just pure agriculture. There's also stuff that looks like process manufacturing. If you go to a packing house, there's a lot of times you'll see these mega farms, and then you'll see the biggest building you've ever seen that's like a mile long, and you go inside and it's conveyor belts and moving apples around and breaking things apart. It may as well be oil refinery or something. It's serious process manufacturing. But what I'll see, some of the equipment is super sophisticated and instrumented. A whole lot of it, though, to your point, just runs until it dies, until it breaks. They're not instrumented at all. And so you see lots of rollers moving things around on conveyor belts and all that stuff. And I've talked to some of those kind of tier 2 manufacturers who build some of that stuff. And sometimes they're small manufacturers, they're local sometimes. And I'm like, you should put some kind of sensors or something to monitor degradation over time, because your customer doesn't like that little Big Bang theory where they find out that it's dead when it dies. And because it could stop the whole line. And, that's a disrupt word that we don't like, is disrupting the line. We can't have.
Yeah, and how much it costs that, right?
Yeah. And I think the other piece to this is the piece is they have an operation that they run, and you'd have to disrupt that operation because they're relying on service providers to come and service the bearings and the belts and the hose and fittings and whatever it is. And so they have that whole supply chain set up. They have the operational contracts put into place. And so now if you're going to disrupt that, not only are you disrupting the technology inside the factory floor, you're disrupting that entire supply chain that's servicing them, and they're not going to leave without a fight. And so I think there's a lot of that goes on as well that gets discounted in there. So.
Hey, Adam, I have a question for you. So, or actually, it's for all of you guys. So, you see a lot of folks talking about introducing agile concepts to IoT and and these IoT platforms being able to support continuous integration and delivery. Speaking of disruption, how much of that do you see actually being adopted? Do you know what I'm saying? Considering the fact that if you're continually upgrading things on the line, these IoT sensors and devices and platforms that are supporting the line. Is that something that where you see a high velocity of change happening that could potentially have that disruptive impact on production?
We don't see it on our side. We've actually slowed down our product releases because just to get a whole team trained up on the new releases and what's happening takes too much in an industrial space. Mm-hmm. So we have it more just for our product team to be able to release bug fixes and enhanced features, right? That might go out. But we've talked about this actually a lot lately because, we'll be on customer calls or partner calls and show them something and they won't even know we released it. We've let them know, we've announced it, the whole deal, and it's 6 months old. And so I think that the way software moves is way faster than the way the production line moves. Now, on the flip side, I'll tell you that there are some major component suppliers right now that have a decade's worth of data out there that they've been capturing from their service centers, from their service techs about why their components have failed in the field. And they are partnering with IoT platforms to get that data from the field and get it back into this massive database they've built. And they actually want you to send the information every 15 minutes, which is super fast, like in industrial space, because they are actually running some type of analytics behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So if a machine breaks in the field on their components, or if they give you a diagnostic message from that machine that something's going to happen, they can run it against the make, the model, the year, and run it against all of that data for the last 10 years and give you a recommendation of the service to service that machine. And these are very old industrial type companies that actually have a really good strategy, I think, where they're saying, we're not going to disrupt everything. We're going to share information. We're going to say we have this machine out here. It's in West Texas. The service tech is a day away. We're going to give you a recommendation to change the fuel sensor or whatever that thing is. And we're seeing more of that pop up. So I think it's not so much continuous integration to the software deployment. It's more like continuous information sharing to the channels to make sure that these machines are staying up rather than actually pushing new features to the platform, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. But it also sounds like that sharing could also be pretty involved and challenging as well, right? To negotiate that for the different types of assets that are out in the field or, equipment that's out in the field.
It's super difficult, and it's typically with the people that build a specific component. Yeah. I build a valve bank, I build a pump, whatever it is, right? I build that. I'm not looking at the whole system, and they're just telling you about that $250,000 pump that's running, and that's all they care about, rather than the whole deal. And so I think it goes back to like the way we kick this off, where the technology is way ahead of the actual use case in a lot of these scenarios.
Yeah, but I think there's also a big difference in the types of environments that you're looking at I know I'm preaching to the choir with this one, in IoT versus IT, right? Very, very different. But I think going back to one of the early comments that you made, you used to call it M to M. As this whole IoT thing became like a big thing, a lot of folks on the IT side kind of looked at IoT as being sort of this imposition of all these benefits that we saw happening in a data center and enterprise computing, just easily translating into the industrial realm. But there's so many factors depending on the industrial use case that you're looking at that are so different, that I think everyone's still trying to reconcile, because there's so many really cool benefits coming from the IT side, but on the OT side, there's so many constraints that the IT side doesn't necessarily appreciate, right? Yeah. And maybe there are other problems to solve. I mean, maybe one of the biggest benefits that you can engineer into your IoT offering is that you can enable this continuous integration and improvement of your system without any disruption, right? So even though I kind of jokingly said, our disruption won't disrupt your business, that's probably the most important thing, right? Or at least for me, that seems to be a big, it's a key takeaway that I'm getting from what we've been chatting about.
Yeah, what's interesting too is I think that you don't want to disrupt the business, you want to enhance the business. And there's, in the industrial space, there's massive amount of waste in the supply chain. There's massive amount of waste in communicating between the ecosystem partners. There's a massive amount of waste in servicing and deploying machines. And so if you can just help just a little bit, and you're not disrupting, you're enhancing these companies, and they don't make a lot of money, right? Comparative. Like if you look at the industrials compared to the tech stocks, they don't make a ton of money. So if you can help with just a little bit of that bottom line by providing communication, collaboration, visibility, recommendations, that goes a long way without having to disrupt how they do business. And I think that's probably some of the largest opportunities out there. It's still something from Rob. Rob and I were grabbing lunch one day last year, I think. And, he made a great point where you just have to move that value needle a little bit. If you just move it a little bit, then you can get massive output, right? And we're seeing this like here in Seattle. We have a company that does the concrete, and you think about this use case where they invoice for concrete on every job that they take out there and disperse it. And all they're doing now is taking the machine data, the job data, using IoT to be able to package that up and provide it back to their back office so that they can start invoicing right away, rather than at the end of the week going out there and taking a thumb drive from every machine, downloading it, creating a CSV file, and then invoicing their customers. So just that one piece becomes super valuable to a company that's deploying concrete. And if people can just solve that problem, that ends up saving a ton of productivity and man hours throughout the organization.
How do you balance? So there's the moving the value needle. There's the aspect that they're not making as much money. Maybe it's thin margins, what they're doing. How do we get these companies that they want the innovation, they want to make more money, they want to have bigger margins, and yet they may be put off by, there's so many players showing up to the party saying, we're going to transform your business with our technology, or we've got our cloud, or we've got our whatever, and it only costs this much. And I can imagine all these companies, they're like, how many years is it going to be before I get my return on investment from this capital or SaaS expense, till moving the value needle enough where you get what I'm saying? Because sometimes
100%.
Right on the edge there,
Man,
they want the help, but they don't have a lot of cash. Like I spend a lot of time doing stuff for free, like nonprofit kind of people who have like no money. And so it's like, I need to give this thing to you for free. What is that like? Do you run into that, just as a business?
For sure. Absolutely. Right. So I think it depends on the partner you're working with, on what type of company they are, meaning, are they sales driven? Are they product driven? Are they service driven? Are they safety driven? And then based on kind of those buckets, and based on either their volume or their price point, right? You can make those decisions because, and then there's also the companies that are way behind. Rail, for example, the rail industry is so far ahead on technology, and there's a lot of companies that are way behind trying to catch up in the rail industry, or they're looking to expand it, right? So that's a market that they've seen the value, they've understood how important it is to get the railroads down and to be able to service these machines remotely, whatever the case is, and they'll invest. There's other companies that say, hey, they're doing some cool stuff with smart ag over here. Can I apply this to my niche ag? Mm-hmm. And they have to go through a whole R&D process. And so, I think that the key there that we have tried to take on is finding, I'm going to hit this again, but finding the right partners, because we can't be with a company for 2 years as they go through this process. but the folks that are in there helping them design their next electronic control system or their next fluid power system can be with them on that relationship, and then be dragging in their IoT partner at the right time. Yeah. So that's why I think that partnership play is so big, because I don't think companies can live through. And I think the hard part, Rob, is you don't know when you walk in the door on day one. You might not know until 6 months down the road, because at the beginning they think they know what they want to do, and then they go, "Well, but we got this trade show, and we got to get this new machine out, and we got to do this. We push it out. This happens all the time."
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I think the partnership play in the space is really big, because you need the domain experts that are living in there all the time. Right. And then there's good handoffs too, because at some point it's way past what they're comfortable doing, and they'll just say, "Hey, handle the rest, this phase of the relationship. We want to be informed," and then hand it back. And that's changed. Like, that has not happened in industrial distribution or manufacturing ever. And this is happening all the time now, where they're saying we are partners to get this across, because the beauty about IoT, again, back to your point, Leonard, is it does continuously improve over time. And so whatever we deliver today is going to be different in 12 months.
Right.
And so we're not setting it and forgetting it, right? We're going back, and they know we're going to be there a long time with their customer. Mm-hmm. And so that relationship is different than I deliver you a pump, a motor, belt, and that trust is inherently built.
Oh, okay. All right.
Gotcha.
We kind of, connection issue, but
it's always connectivity issue, man. IoT would be great if we did have connectivity issues.
Yeah, no kidding.
Dang connectivity.
Hey guys, I'm out of coffee.
Yes,
I got to jump on a analyst call soon. So.
Oh, he's got to make money. He's got to bring home Tenero. Yeah. So all of our friends that are on Clubhouse, and I see some hands raised, and you're probably growing impatient with us. We're going to bring you up here. We're doing our typical, because this is a YouTube show. And so we're going to shut the video down, and then we'll be able to bring you up on stage and talk to you here in Clubhouse.
Yeah.
So,
and hey, Adam, thanks for joining us. It was totally awesome having you. Long time coming. Hope to have you on again, because I think we need to continue this conversation. Just a bunch of light bulbs went off in my head, but we just unfortunately don't have time. And I'm sure light bulbs went off in Rob and Marc's head.
I could see a glow coming out of Leonard's eyes from the light bulb behind. Yeah,
totally.
But can I ask one last question?
Okay, go ahead.
So, Adam, what can we do to accelerate adoption of the IoT in the industry?
I think it's so I think that, like I said, technology is way ahead of the curve. I think a lot of it is training organizations on. You have to truly be committed to the business side. Yeah. Truly be committed to the business side. Not say that you are, but putting actual leaders in on that transformation. And then I think that there's we have this major gap where we're not hiring enough young people for industrial manufacturing and the supply chain. And I think IoT is one way to pull those folks back in as they're leaving college, because it's so exciting. I think we got to look at, hey, if I'm coming out of one of these colleges and I'm going to come work for these industrial companies, how can we make it exciting, right? And I think that's something that's plaguing every major company out there. Those two things. At the end of the day, IoT is just a feature. It's 100% about the business. You got to get into that piece, and then we got to get more young people out of college coming in there.
Yeah, I got one. These companies should ask themselves, how are you going to compete with China?
100%.
Period. That's it.
Yeah.
Get your ass going is
100%
really what it boils down to. And, less bitching, more doing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
TM. Less bitching, more doing.
And get lucky, right?
Yeah, get lucky.
Get lucky. We're up all night to get lucky.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thanks to our IoT Coffee Talk listeners. Subscribe. Go visit us at www.iotcoffeetalk.com and squash that subscribe, like
right
below.
Like us on TikTok. We have our cool IoT Coffee Talk dance that we do on TikTok.
Do so I was not aware of that. But hey, Adam, thanks a lot. We're gonna bring the Clubhouse folks up, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Adios,
guys.
Adios.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.